Anthropologists tell us that we've been the same for about 200,000 years. That means we've been the same biologically, physiologically, psychologically, neurologically, emotionally, and linguistically. But we've only had writing for about 5,000 years. That means for most of human history, 195,000 years out of 200,000 years, everything we knew about ourselves, everything we knew about the world was transmitted through spoken language. Everything we knew about ourselves, our origin story, our relationship with the gods, the safe foods to eat, the safe plants to eat, the poisonous animals to avoid, how to hunt, stories of great heroes from the past, all of these were transmitted through spoken language and remembered. And it's unlikely that this happened in a classroom setting. It was almost certainly told through stories. Stories told by the older generation to the younger generation. Then when the younger generation grew up, they told those same stories to the next generation. Anthropologists say we have something called a collective memory, a metaphorical storehouse of information. And so long as any ancient tribe kept its lineage intact, this metaphorical storehouse of information was transmitted generation to generation, and as they learned more about themselves and the world around them, this metaphorical storehouse of information, this collective memory, kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And this collective memory contained everything that they knew about themselves, passed on from generation to generation through stories. It's not hard to imagine how absolutely critical this information was, which kind of suggests that the main reason we developed language was to keep this metaphorical storehouse of information alive, to keep this collective memory alive, which means we have a collection of storytelling instincts. Everything we do that we need to survive is driven by instincts. So we must have a collection of storytelling and story listening instincts. This is part of who we are. The whole reason we have language, maybe, is to tell stories. Because telling stories and remembering stories was critical to our survival. And you can see this everywhere today. Everywhere you look, you see stories. The storytelling industry is worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Movies, books, TV shows, webtoons, video games, all of these are stories. And if you can tell a good story within this industry, you can make a lot of money. All advertising, or most advertising, is told in the form of stories. Every single short 30-second commercial you see on TV or listen to on the radio is told in a story format. Some of the best sales letters ever written are told in a story format. Once upon a time, there was a couple of people. One guy bought this product, one guy bought a different product. This guy succeeded, this guy didn't. Buy Acme, whatever. All political campaigns are essentially stories as to why we should vote for candidate X versus candidate Y. Milton Erickson was famous for telling stories to his patients. He was the guy who invented conversational hypnosis. People would come in with a problem. He would say, "Tell me about your problem." "Well, doc, it's like this, blah, 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 blah." And he would say, that reminds me of a story. And he would tell a story. It was a very convoluted, hypnotic story, filled up with a lot of hypnotic technology. But within these stories, he could heal patients. He could get his patients to forget problems and remember strengths. He could tell stories that would implant desires, that would make them curious about themselves so they could learn more, so they could improve their lives. He would tell them stories that would implant a desire to always be curious about how they could improve their lives. And even if they didn't remember these stories, even if they forgot these stories, they would still work because the hypnotic language was used inside the stories that got into their mind, operated on their mind, and helped them solve their problems. I watched a documentary once on Netflix about justice gone wrong, one of those things about how they show innocent people being put in prison when they're innocent and not guilty. And finally the guy was let go, but they were going through the original trial, and they showed his situation, wrong place, wrong time. They showed the defense attorney, which was a public attorney, which was probably not very good, versus the prosecuting attorney, which was a up-and-coming hotshot lawyer, wanted to be a politician one day, the kind of guy that loved the sound of his own voice. And he would just go on and tell stories to the jury. And when he was convicted, they asked the jurors in the documentary, why did you vote guilty? And they all said the same thing, because the prosecuting attorney told a better story. That's the power of storytelling. If you can tell a good story, you can make a lot of money, you can move minds, you can heal people, you can uplift people, or you can send innocent people to prison if you can tell a good story. Telling a story is part of who you are. The good news is that because we have a collection of storytelling instincts, if you want to be able to tell a good story, you just need to practice the instincts and the skills that are already within you. You don't need to find a book about telling stories and make sure you have the technique down before you open your mouth. You don't need to go to a storytelling seminar. You just need to start telling stories. At the beginning, it will be very much like when you learn a new language. Everybody who learns a new language realizes that recognition is a lot easier than production, meaning that you can recognize new words in your new language a lot more easily than you can spontaneously produce those words. But with practice, recognition and production will equalize, and you can speak and listen and speak and listen without any problem, subconsciously, automatically. Unconscious competence. Storytelling is the same. At first, you can recognize good stories from bad stories. That's the recognition part. But with practice, you will be able to produce stories just as easily as you recognize stories, as you enjoy stories, as you consume stories and learn from stories. So how do you learn how to tell stories? Since you already have the storytelling instinct inside of you, since you already have the capability to recognize a good story from a bad story, you just need to practice storytelling to build up your storytelling instinct. You already understand the simple story structure, some kind of an interesting hook, build up to some kind of attention, and then release. This is the same structure that's in music. Hook, tension, release. Hook, tension, release. And just repeat this cycle over and over again. The more you do this, the better you'll get. You'll develop your gestures. You'll develop your storytelling eye contact. You'll develop your storytelling tonality, modulation, and variation. You'll develop when you can use pauses during your story to keep your listeners hanging on the edge of their seat. Another benefit of being an effective storyteller is you will be automatically assumed to be an authority figure. And when you're telling a story to more than a few people, you will be the authority and you'll have social proof. These are two of the most powerful factors of influence there are, authority and social proof. So simply by deciding to become a storyteller, you will build up your frame strength. You'll build up your authority. You'll build up your social proof. And if you can practice enough, if you can get to the point where you can tell stories to larger and larger groups of people, there is no telling what kind of success you'll enjoy. Think of that as a goal in 6 months to a year, to get to the point where you can tell brilliant stories in front of large crowds and move their minds. This is a skill that few people have and will get you paid huge amounts of money. This is how stand-up comedians make so much money. They tell stories to audiences, and they do this just to entertain them. Imagine what you could do if you could tell stories to large audiences to persuade them, to motivate them. People pay a lot more money to listen to a motivational speaker than they do a comedian. People pay thousands and thousands of dollars to listen to a motivational speaker talk. So if you can develop your storytelling skills, if you can learn some persuasion techniques, if you can embed some hypnotic techniques within your storytelling, there is no amount of success that will be out of your reach. You can become the greatest speaker of all time if you wanted to, because storytelling is a skill that has no upper limit. The more you practice, the better you get. And even if you don't want to be a motivational speaker, even if you just want to entertain people at parties, becoming a storyteller will make you much more charismatic, much more influential, much more attractive. Plenty of studies have shown that ladies indicate that one very attractive trait is somebody who can tell a good story. So don't let your storytelling instinct go to waste. Wake it up. Practice storytelling. Practice storytelling techniques, and you can become far more charismatic and attractive than most people can ever allow themselves to dream about. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, please drop a comment below. Please like, share, and comment on this video. And if you'd like to learn more about how you can improve your storytelling skills and all your other communication skills, check out the links below. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.